on how to be a better speaker.
How many minutes?
This will be 5 to 7 minutes. Thank you very much, Ramesh. Yesterday I had a fantastic opportunity that was absolutely horrible. Okay, so a friend of mine invited me to come with him as he gave a presentation to 27 high school science teachers. Now my friend's an engineer, and in fact he's an engineer's engineer. So what he was actually presenting to them was a project. And the concept behind this project was to use a little computer and a couple of laser gates to measure a ball that would go down a tube. It would break one of the lasers. It would go down the tube. It would break the other lasers. And then using the little bit of a computer, you could capture the time that the ball was at the two different points. Since you knew the distance between the points, you could then go ahead and do some fairly fundamental calculations and calculate things like acceleration and velocity, etc., etc., etc. And then as you change the angle of incidence, you could actually show that it changed it. But basically, giving science teachers a real-world tool that they could use to teach in their class. So this is a great concept. And man, you know, thinking back to my high school science education, they never had sophisticated tools like this. It was always, you know, it's in chapter 7. Read chapter 7. I'm going to include it on the test. So the idea was great. His execution of it, his delivery of the information, was god-awful. Okay? Once again, I love my friend. He's a fantastic guy. His heart is most definitely in the right place. His speaking skills didn't even show up for the presentation. Okay? He is not, in case you're wondering, a Toastmaster. And it showed. You know, oftentimes we're exposed to very good speakers. And we'll look at the very good speakers and we'll go, wow, they're really good. What could they do better? I have no idea. They're a good speaker, right? Watching my friend yesterday, I was filled with a fractious feeling. I wanted him to sit down and just let me do it. It's so bad. Make it stop. And I thought, you know, wait, stop. I can't do that. Really what I need to do is I probably need to take him aside afterwards and have a talk with him. And I was thinking, well, what would I tell him? How could you help somebody who obviously has the courage to get up and give a speech, how they could actually do it better? Now, of course, my recommendation would always be join Toastmasters, right? I mean, that's where we start. But, you know, it's interesting because Toastmasters, as good of an organization as it is, there's one thing that Toastmasters doesn't teach you. And Toastmasters doesn't teach you how to write a good speech. Toastmasters will do an excellent job of telling you how to deliver a good speech. But they're surprisingly quiet on how to actually really create a good speech. They dance around the outsides. It should have 3 parts. It should have, but they never really get into it. So I'm going to get into it today. I'm going to tell you what you need to do the next time you're putting together a speech. Okay? So we already know, hopefully, that a speech has fundamentally 3 parts. You can do crazy things, but let's talk about regular speeches. An opening, a middle, and a close. So we know that. But have we ever really talked about how those 3 parts work together? Probably not enough. Let's talk about that for a moment. So look. When you start a speech, a most amazing thing happens in the room that you're giving the speech. Everybody's head turns just a little bit, and they shut up, or they put their smartphones down, okay? And they look at you, because they're all thinking the same question. What is he or she going to talk about? And do I care? Should I listen to them? I've got all these other fantastic things I could be doing. You know, I'm on level 12 of Angry Birds. I'm going to get those pigs, I tell you. Yes, I am. Okay. Or should I pay attention to you? Because you're going to tell me something valuable that will improve my life. Okay? That means the first few words that tumble out of your mouth are the most important words of your speech. If you've got great ideas halfway through your speech, or even at the tail end of your speech, that's fine, but it's not going to matter if they're not listening to you. So it's the first words that you say that count the most. Whoa. Not putting pressure on you or anything like that, but there you go. Well, how are you going to grab your audience's attention? I say insult them. It would work, right?
Yeah.
Man, you insult me, I'm paying attention to you. Come on, bring it on. You know, if you got to do that, then that's fantastic. You want to maybe ask them a question. You know, that's sort of a standard way of doing it. Ask them a question, and then don't just make it a, hey, how's your day going sort of question. Make it a good question. How long do you think you have to live? You don't have that long. Now I'm listening. Now I'm listening. Wait, what's the answer to that number? Okay? Say something wrong. Say something outrageous. Grab their attention. Now you move into the middle of the speech. You know what's interesting thing about the middle of the speech? Nobody ever talks about the middle of a speech. So let's do that now. So what's the purpose of a middle of a speech? Well, that's where you put all the good stuff, right? That's where you put the meat of your speech. The reason global warming is such a big deal, oh wait, I'm in the middle of the speech. Now I will tell you why it's such a big deal. But what we forget is it's not just a dumping ground for information, because unfortunately a lot of us use it that way. The middle of the speech exists for one reason and one reason only, because it's the build-up for your conclusion. Okay? It's the ramp that your audience has to travel to get to the jumping off point that is your conclusion. What that means for you is that whatever your conclusion is, if the point that you're making in the middle of your speech doesn't relate to your conclusion, it shouldn't be in the middle of your speech. In fact, it shouldn't be in your speech at all. You know, if my point on global warming is that burning coal is bad, then everything in the middle of my speech had better do with coal. Okay? If I've got something in there about wind farms, it's out. Because it's got nothing to do with my conclusion. Hey, I did all this research on wind farms. Shut up. Who cares? Not in this speech, right? Okay? And then your conclusion. 3 things you want to cover in your conclusion. First off, what was it all about? Look, I just sat through your speech. What was your main point? Okay? What is that final point? Sum it up for me. Don't just assume I'm going to get it. Oh, so the answer's 4. No, you have to tell me. And finally, what do you want me to do? I sat through your speech. You shared all this great information. You shared your interpretation of the information with me. What do you want me to do now? Tell me. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to do it. But tell me what you want, and then we're going to have a discussion about that. And there you go, guys. Your next speech can do what we all want our speeches to do. Change the world. Just take my advice and make a great speech. Mr. Toastmaster.
There's 1 minute to evaluate